Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today I have another Series 12 team report with another top player, and this time it's me. I played in the Series 12 Victory Road Series 12 Major this past weekend. It had 328 players and I got all the way to top 4. Really happy with my performance, and of course I used Zacian Palkia. So if you have been following the channel for a while, you probably remember that I used Zacian Palkia in the first weekend of the format in the USPA Major and top cut that as well. And I thought it was one of the most powerful teams in the format early in the metagame, and I still think it is one of the best teams in the format. If you look at my team, obviously it is pretty standard at this point. I'm not going to go into too much depth because at this point, if you've been playing on ladder, you've probably seen some variants of this team and they all look pretty similar. And while I do have some ideas of how it could change, I don't really want to share those because I kind of want to use this team as Salt Lake City. And if I have any cool techs, I'm not going to share them before the tournament. And that's actually part of why I used a pretty vanilla build of it, was because I knew that this was open team sheet and people would be able to copy any interesting things I did. But then I did really well, so I figured I should share the team anyways. But that being said, here's my pitch for why you should use Zacian Palkia. Victory Road posted the usage stats for every single Pokemon in the top 30 usage and their top cut rate. Right, and this is a really cool dump of information. Some things that to note: one, Solgal layout still sucks. I've been saying this from the beginning of the format. It has ridiculously high usage for its absurdly low top cut rate. Stop using that Pokemon. It is garbage. But there's a lot of conclusions that you can take away from here. Obviously, it is a somewhat small sample size, but here's the top cut rate for every single restricted Pokemon. It's a little small, but you can see that Palkia has a 17% top cut rate, higher than any other Pokemon. Now, part of that is because, for example, Zacian has a really high usage rate. It's really hard to convert that consistently. But it says a lot that this Pokemon has a 17% cut rate. But if you go into this tournament, there's 330 people, 28 people top cut. That means you have a 1 in 12 chance of top cutting, assuming you're completely average. And with Palkia, you have a 1 in 6 chance of top cutting. So you are literally doubling your odds of top cutting this tournament by using Zacian Palkia. That's my pitch. That's my pitch for why to use this team. And I just think it's really good. Anyways, I guess I will talk about this team. I won't go into too much depth again because it is pretty standardized. If you have seen this core before, I think notably Hannah got top 8 in the Hatteran series with 5 of the same 6 Pokemon, with a Rillaboom over Amoonguss. And that same weekend, 2 weeks ago, I used the same 6 Pokemon in the Eternamax Cup, which is a team tournament, and I went 4-0 for personally, and then my team actually won the entire tournament with these same 6. So this was kind of the 6 that people had kind of landed upon as the consensus. But after some thought, I did end up changing the Rillaboom to an Amoonguss. And the reason for that is because I thought that Rillaboom was really good into Seismitoad. It obviously was very strong into Kyogre teams in general, but especially into Seismitoad, you just had problems doing damage to it because it could really overpower you. And the Seismitoad variant since then has decreased in usage. I don't think a single one top cut this past weekend, and I generally was not as scared of it. And then also Amoonguss, which previously had run Pollen Puff, is now running Giga Drain. And so it just has another way to potentially hit Seismitoad. And on top of that, the game plan otherwise is Ditto wants to transform into Seismitoad, and then you can Power Whip it. But now you have a couple of different ways to hit it. You have a couple of ways to slow it down. And I think it's less of a problem, just partially because it's lower usage. But beyond that, other Kyogre variants really struggle with the Amoonguss too. You're not doing damage with your Pokemon. Your damage is still concentrated in the Zacian and Palkia, and the Ditto to some extent. But Amoonguss is still chunking things with Giga Drain, honestly. So it's really not that bad. It does mean that you are better into the field, however. So just like Ice Rider, for example, has such a struggle with Amoonguss. And of course, the Speed IV allows you to underspeed Calyrex Ice. The Dialga teams, this gives you a way to redirect Dialga's really powerful attacks and allows you to get max Quake Boosts. And if you get a max Quake Boost on Amoonguss, a lot of times these teams that rely on powerful special attackers are going to really struggle with it. And on top of that, I think that Amoonguss is really good in open team sheet formats. And so, maybe in Salt Lake City or in the IC, you're better off running Rillaboom because you don't want to spore into a Safety Goggles, for example. You don't want to spore into a Lumberry. And you don't want to try to redirect the text from like a Safety Goggles Thundurus. Whereas here, I knew that which Thundurus were Safety Goggles and which ones were not, and I could play around it accordingly. So Amoonguss definitely gets a lot better in open team sheet, and that was part of the reason for me running it this weekend. The EV spread, I think, is the same that I ran back when. I forget what the EVs do, to be honest. But I copied it from my old Palkia team. In terms of the other Pokemon, the Palkia is not the same, but is, I think, what I said I would change it to in my last team report, because Justin lost his top cut match in that USPA because we hit 149 speed, which outspeeds Calyrex at +1 and Zacian at +1 speed, and he got outsped by an Eviltal that hit 150 speed. And so I was like, well, the 3 extra points not going to make a huge difference, but the max speed potentially means that things that are trying to save EVs, that are trying to just barely outspeed the Calyrex and Zacian at +1 speed. The 149 to 152 range is really, really crowded in general in terms of speed stats, and so just like making sure that you are at the top of that and worst case are speed tying is just, I think, the way to go. And then the rest is in special attack because you want damage. You could justifiably go down to maybe 143 speed stat to outspeed Kyogre, just like modest Kyogre, or you could go down to even lower to like 139 to outspeed Elky when you're at +2 or they're at -2. Those are all both valid options. You could even go slower than that, right? This team does not have great ways to put things at -2 speed if they're electric types. But I think that you want to outspeed things with Palkia. Getting max Quake boosts off before Kyogre gets to move is really valuable. So things like that just come up. Getting max Quakes off before Dialga gets to move is just essential to the matchup, really. Like, Dialga KOs you with max Whirlwind if you don't get a max Quake off, although obviously you could EV to live that. So those are the trade-offs. I like max speed, and I think you want the special attack. That's kind of where I'm at. You don't have much damage on this team. Palkia needs to do damage. Incineroar, I did change the EV spread a little bit, and I did add a Shucca Berry instead of Safety Goggles, and so that did make my team a little worse into Amoonguss, but the Safety Goggles is obviously on the Thundurus now, so that kind of compensates for that, depending on what archetype I'm facing. This is also a concession to Dialga. Dialga had been rising in popularity leading up to this tournament. It was really heavily used in NPA, and then you can see here that it was just not one of the top use restricteds, which really surprised me. I thought that it would see more usage than it did, because I think it's a really good, like a genuinely strong team, and you should be considering it. Like, it's powerful, especially since like Zacian Kyogre is everywhere, and it's one of the few teams that can actually say that it's positive into Zacian Kyogre, and Palkia is one of the other few teams that can say that. So, so this was another concession to the Dialga matchup where the EV spread, 156 Bidef, lets you live a max Wormwind from Life Orb Dialga, and the Shucca Berry obviously lets you live the max Quake from Dialga, and so now you just get to like tank an attack from Dialga no matter what, and you get your parting shot off. Max Quake also helps into like Landorus, for example, Groudon, for example. Obviously not Calyrex Ice because they have Unnerve for some reason, but in general, Shucca Berry is quite useful, especially on a team that does not have a ton of ground resists. And like Palkia is a special attacker, so Max Quake is pretty profitable into this team. Thundurus obviously is a ground immunity, but instant having a Shucca Berry gives you that one additional hit that you really need to take on those ground types. And again, Dialga is the main reason. And then 100 defense, I believe, lives a Zacian Sacred Sword, Zacian Close Combat. I think it's Zacian Close Combat. I might be wrong about that. But there was a convenient calc that made me not put the 4 speed for attack and put the 100 defense instead. I also don't think speed really matters for Incineroar. It's just like overrated. Speed creeping Incineroar isn't actually that valuable because there is just merit to parting shotting second. Although obviously if they're running Throat Chop, if they're running Taunt, then maybe you want to be faster. You have a Palkia. Like, who cares, And so that's the Incineroar. The Zacian is maybe the interesting part of the team. I probably should have started with that. The Zacian is the interesting part of the team. I said that, I didn't want to run anything too experimental because I didn't want people to copy it if it turned out well. But this was the experimental thing that I was trying, which is maybe an advantage in open team sheets because this is something that you can't see in open team sheets. It looks like a standardization. So here's my logic. I had 2 main pieces of like underlying logic with this Zacian. The first is that I like Substitute a lot. Sub is a really good move. It lets you fade Dynamax turns, It lets you play really well into Amoonguss because they can't freely spore you. And it like lets you just like position a lot more effectively with your Incineroar with your Amoonguss because you just get to like skip turns really effectively. However, it also like blocks Intimidate. However, it is a lot better when you are really fast. And I also wanted bulk on my Zacian. I felt like giving Zacian max Quake boosts was a big part of my strategy into a lot of teams. And I also think all the attacking moves are really good. And I wanted Play Rough and Sacred Sword for different matchups. Again, I respected Dialga a lot. Sacred Sword is really important to beat Dialga. Kartana was increasing in usage. Not that I really considered it when I was making this set, but it also came up against Kartana. And then Play Rough hits Yveltal, which can be a problem for Palkia, and you want to be able to like OHKO it. Opposing Palkia also, I respect Palkia more than most people, I guess, so I really wanted to make sure I could hit that. Thundurus is a big problem for this team, special Thundurus, and so being able to play off those Thundurus is really important. All those things meant that you really want all three of these attacking moves. And so I didn't have room for Sub. And I think Sub benefits from the additional speed stat because it means that you can Sub before the Dynamax turns. And again, you were just kind of wasting those Dynamax turns. They aren't really doing as much damage with them. And so the speed was less important for that reason. The second thing is that I don't have speed control on this team other than Thunderwave. And Thunderwave, after Thunderwave, Zacian outspeeds everything anyways. And so I said, well, if I'm not going to get to +1 speed, I don't need to outspeed Venusaur at +1 speed. I don't need to outspeed Regieleki at +1 speed. I could still go really fast and try to win as many speed ties as possible. But I could also go really slow. Now, the next thing that people want to outspeed is Thundurus, which hits 179, so you run 180 speed. But I looked at it and I was like, well, if I underspeed Thundurus, the next speed tier that I care about is 167 speed. Which is base 100s, right? That would be like Timid Palkia. And so you can see here, the CV spread hits 169 speed. I said, I'm going to concede that I'm going to underspeed these physical Thundurus, and I'm going to get my free 11 points that I can put in bulk. And so I actually tried this first in the Eternamax Cup, and I played one Thundurus, and this, again, 2 weeks ago I tried it in the Eternamax Cup, and I ran max HP, max attack. I wanted to try that out. And I played one Thundurus, and I undersped it, and I still won. Because the other thing about Thundurus is that, yes, you are speeding it. You're not KOing it with Behemoth Blade or Play Rough. The partner is probably a Zacian that's outspeeding you. And their Thundurus is going to live an attack and get a max airstream off, and then turn 2, they're going to outspeed you anyways. So unless you can reduce the speed stat or get your Zacian to a +1 speed, it doesn't matter that you underspeed Thundurus, because you're not taking the KO, and they're taking the KO back, potentially. Or rather, the Thundurus isn't taking the KO back. And they're getting... Yeah, that's what I meant to say. The Thundurus is not taking the KO back, right? So I didn't think that actually mattered that much, although it could come up, and it really depends on your game plans, and this makes your game plans into Thundurus a little less flexible. Physical Thundurus also has been dropping in usage, so again, just something that trying to play into the metagame a little bit. And so I figured, okay, I can drop all these points. I tried max attack in the Eternamax Cup. I don't think the attack investment ever came up, but that was a pretty small sample size. It was 4 games. So for this tournament, I said, what if I go the other way? What if I run very little attack? Right, I'm going to two-shot everything anyways. The idea with max attack was, if you look at the team report with Nick Borky on the channel, he ran max attack Adamant pretty much, and he said, like, I wanted to KO the things that were EVing for 76 attack or 156 attack and just get those favorable rolls. And that's fair. And his team was much more hyper-offensive, so he kind of needed that. I said, I'm going to two-shot everything anyways. I don't think that I need to get those like 25% rolls that were otherwise had no chance of killing because of their AV spreads. I'm just going to run 70, the bare minimum attack. I'm going to hit the jump point for attack. And if you aren't familiar with jump point, I feel like I need to explain this every time for newer people. If you increase every ADVs gives your Pokemon 1 additional point. But if you have a stat boosting nature, then every 80th EV will give your Pokemon 2 extra points. And what number that actually is depends on the original base stat of the Pokemon. And so in this case, for Zacian, it is 76 will give you that, and then 156 will give you another extra 2-point jump, and then 236 gives you another 2-point jump. And so you often see people try to hit those numbers. So I hit that jump number. Obviously, max HP. The 84 defense lets you live a Behemoth Blade from Ditto that copies your Zacian, which I think is really funny. Ditto also just like really high usage. You can see here it was all the way up to 5% usage. Like, that's not negligible by any means. And there were a lot the top cut. And so I figured, okay, this is a cool benchmark that I can hit. The other benchmark potentially is 116 sped def, I believe, hits like some Kyogre calcs that you might want. But I decided that the Ditto calc was a little cooler, and so I went with that. And then the special defense investment lets you give the Porygon 2 an attack boost instead of a special attack boost with download, which is just like a small micro optimization. And the speed, very conveniently, you outspeed base 100s. And then you also get a point of speed creep because otherwise you're wasting 4 EVs. So that was the EV spread. Really cool concept, and it came up constantly. The bulk was so important throughout my tournament run. And so I think I will. I did record all of my matches. I think I will publish them. I have 2 exams this week, so I might not publish them for a little while. But I'm kind of going to do the same format as the last ESPA run, where I just kind of condense them and put it all in one video. There will be more matches this time because I got further in the tournament and also played more matches because there was 9 rounds of Swiss. But I kept living attacks with like under 20 HP and was just like popping off because the spread was insane and it would just like caught people off guard because it's an advantage that you can get in open team sheet that people otherwise might not see. However, I also faced a Gotti who made it all the way to top 8 in this tournament. He also went 8-1 in Swiss. He was my one loss. And the set was an incredible set. Really close. Came down to a Ditto versus Zacian speed tie because I copied his Zacian, but then it got to +1 speed. And he won the speed tie and he won the set in game 3 because of it. But his Zacian undersped his Kartana. So he was also running this super fat Zacian. But first off, my Zacian did not outspeed his because I literally have no speed. But secondly, his Kartana outsped my Zacian. And that was a little concerning. And that was something that we also see, like, Kartana's usage has been increasing a little bit. You see that Torviv ran it and Agati ran it. And so that is something that I didn't consider. Again, I looked at it and I said there's nothing in this speed tier that I want to outspeed. But now that there are things that are appearing in that speed tier, it's probably not worth actually running this set. It's just something to consider, like, as the metagame develops, you have to like innovate a little bit and figure out where you can get additional points. And this was somewhere where I said I can get 11 points and not lose anything. And then there was one game where I got punished for it. And, you know, that's just kind of how it goes. So that's the idea behind the Zacian. Really cool in theory. If you're not fast, you don't really need sub as much. And you can just like kind of trade damage a little better. And so that was the idea, and it worked out really well. I would definitely recommend trying it out. However, into this metagame, specifically with Kartana increasing in usage, maybe not worth running, because then at that point, if you're outspeeding Kartana, you might as well outspeed Thundurus, and then you've kind of lost the gains that you otherwise get. And then also, if you have a way to boost your speed, it's probably not worth running. So, I don't know. I go back and forth about it, but it's worth trying out if you're considering it. Moving on to Ditto. Ditto does Ditto things. Again, really cool. If you watch my top 4 set versus Joe, I was really happy with game 2 with how I positioned Ditto. It just like kind of popped off. The set with the Gotti, also Ditto just like did a lot of really fun stuff and won me game 1. And so like it was good all tournament. It's a really good Pokemon. It's maybe a little like, I feel like Ditto is saying that you are going to figure out game plans on the fly, and if you have a few teams in mind that you want to face, then maybe you can like pick a better Pokemon that is better into those specific teams. The theory for Ditto is that it's really good into Calyrex Shadowization teams, which increased in usage, as you can see from here. Not from here. As you can see from this other plot that's at the very bottom of the screen here. It is the second most used pair, and it bombed. It had an awful top cut rate. But theoretically, against Calyrex, you can copy either of those things. I played one Calyrex, and I won a game because I copied it effectively, and then I lost. I almost lost a game because it has Focus Sash, and you can't like copy it unless you chip it first. And at that point, you might as like it's at 1 HP, you know. And so I actually won that game anyways, which was really funny because I kid you not, the Calyrex ran out of PP on Astral Barrage. They just did not PP max their Astral Barrage, and pressure on Palkia made it. They had to target the Palkia twice. And or 3 times, something like that, because it's max Palkia, and they ran out of PP. And then I had my Incineroar in the back. It was like a 2 HP Incineroar versus a Calyrex, and they did not have a way to hit it, and I won the game because of it. I was just so confused when they like Will-O-Wisp my I thought I was about to forfeit. I thought I had lost the game. And then they Will-O-Wisp my Incineroar. I was like, did they just throw it? Did they just misclick? No, they just ran out of PP. It was so funny. Anyways. which which is why you run pressure on Palkia. Don't run telepathy when you don't have a move that can hit yourself. That's the takeaway, I guess. But yeah, that's Ditto is maybe not as good as it could be, but on the other hand, it put in work all weekend. It was insane. I won sets against Kyogre by copying their Kyogre after chipping it down to 2 HP and then getting a Scarf Water Spout off from max health. Stuff like that comes up a lot. There's a lot of utility for the Pokemon. It's not surprising that it's really high usage. It's not surprising that it has a high conversion rate. But as the metagame centralizes, I think you could find a better slot there. So that's something to maybe consider as you move forward with the team. The nature and the speed stat, just run min speed, honestly. I thought that outspeeding the 120 speed tier might be useful because, if you get into a situation where Ditto switches in and they only have one Pokemon, and that Pokemon is a Groudon, right? And you can't you have to click a transform to copy the Groudon. You would rather copy the Groudon's defense stats before it gets to move than go afterwards. But that never came up, and that is very unlikely to ever come up. On the other hand, if you go min speed, you underspeed Incineroar, and then if you switch in at the same time, the Incineroar gets Intimidate off, and then the Ditto transforms, so it copies their stat boosts and ignores the Intimidate, which is better than the alternative where it copies the Incineroar and then gets a -1 attack. So I think that's the lesson that I learned, is that you do run negative speed Ditto, which is what people have been running, and I didn't really fully understand it, and now I do. So that's that. Was I impish? Was I really impish? Yeah, okay. Also, run minus attack instead of minus special attack. There's no reason to run impish when you can run bolt. That's the other takeaway. So yeah, don't be bad like me and run an inefficient Ditto, or not inefficient, but less than optimal Ditto. But also, it comes up so infrequently that who cares? And then the next thing is the Thundurus, the last Pokemon on the team. Thundurus was really good into Zacian Kyogre and was, again, another concession into Dialga. Obviously, kind of standard at this point, but Eerie Impulse is really valuable. Safety Goggles gives you safer lines into Amoonguss. My top 16 match against Ink, he had an Amoonguss Zacian Ogre team, and having a Thundurus that not only ignores the Kyogre and gets to click Eerie Impulse into the partner is really valuable, but also you just get to ignore the Amoonguss lot because the Amoonguss does nothing into you. And that's just really, really nice to have that option. And then obviously when you are putting something next to the Thundurus that needs to have some protection, then you do get to taunt the Amoonguss for free as well. So, good Pokemon. I couldn't tell you what the EV spread does. I copied it from some other team, but it was fine. The moves are pretty standardized. There is a debate about Scary Face versus Thunderwave and which one's better, but when you have Ditto on the team, you have to run Thunderwave so that you can not give yourself a -2 speed stat. That's just kind of how it is. Thunderwave's also really good. I did win sets because of Thunderwave paralysis, and I don't think I missed a Thunderwave all tournament. So when that happens, you're definitely coming out ahead. But there is an argument to scary facing Landuruses, scary facing Thundurus, scary facing Alaki. Those things do come up, just not with the Ditto. And yeah, Thundurus pretty standardized on this team. You saw Hannah was running it. I think most people are running it. You could maybe run Alaki like I did in USPA. But this is a little more consistent, and I think that the conclusion when we were running Alaki was we cannot beat Dialga, and Thundurus gives you a much more consistent way to beat Dialga. So that's again, I really respected Dialga with this team. It was the flavor of the week leading up to this tournament, and I thought it was going to be much more common going into this tournament, and I really built to beat it, and it just did not face it because it didn't show up to this tournament. So that's that. Again, I will try to upload all of my games from this tournament. I played 11 sets. I got a buy round 1 because my opponent didn't show up, which is kind of what happens with the free tours that start early in the morning. My opponent was Tiki, an American player, and I imagine he overslept because I very nearly overslept for the tournament as well. And then JUX9, who ended up winning the tournament, also overslept round 1 and then just started with... Overslept round 1. His opponent no-showed round 2. He played a 7-round tournament, basically, which is kind of funny. I played 11 sets. I recorded all of them except for the last 2, the top 8 and top 4 sets, which were on the Victory Road stream. And so you can watch those there, but I will try to upload all of my videos and so you can kind of watch how this team plays. I played 11 sets, played 5 Tornogre. Or not Tornogre, Zacian Ogre. And obviously that is the usage stats. Zacian Ogre is 20% usage. Is that right? Is that really true? Yeah, I mean, 20% usage is still really high. Obviously, 5 out of 11 is a lot higher. But you, I think when you get further in tournaments, because this is just so far and away the best team, you have to like play it or build to beat it, and you should expect to face a lot of it, and you should really know your game plans against it. And so, I went 3-2 against Zacian Ogre. I lost to Agadi, and then I lost to Joe in Top Cut, and I went undefeated against every other archetype. So even though I'm running a Palkia team that is theoretically really good into it, it is maybe the one team that still has the best, like, I mean, I think it's 60-40 in my favor, and that was my win rate against it, but like, it's such a good team, and it has so many different variants, and you can't, it's like so hard to build to beat the Seismitoad variant, and the Barraskewda variant, and the Zapdos variant, and the, Ferrothorn variant, and I faced a Kingdra variant that did well in Japan Nationals. Like, so many different types of teams that you can face with Zacian Ogre. It's so versatile. It's the team to beat. It just is, and it will be for the rest of the format. But Palkia gives you a really good shot. So, that's kind of my takeaway. I think that this will be very helpful. I faced a bunch of random teams. I actually have the notes in front of me. I faced Rayquaza Zacian round 2. I faced Zacian Ogre round 3. Zacian Kyurem round 4. Eviltal Zacian round 5. Agadi with Zacian Tornogre round 6. Genius on Venudon round 7. I faced a Calyrex Groudon player round 8. That was where I won on PP. Round 9, I faced a Kingdra Zacian Ogre. And then top cut, I faced top 16, I faced Zacian Ogre. Top 8, I faced Colossal Eviltal Zacian. Top 4, I faced Zacian Ogre. So that was my run. I told you my 2 losses. Overall, like, really, really clean. I think that, like, I mean, I had a pretty absurd win rate, too. I think I 2-0'd all my opponents except for the 2 that I lost, where I lost 2-1. And then my round 3, I went to a game 3 because I lost game 1. And that's it. I mean, I straight up 2-0'd everyone else. Like, it was kind of absurd. So, really recommend this team. I think it's one of the strongest teams in the format. Obviously, it's not too flashy, but if you want to try it out, you can get the paste. That's not the paste. You can get the paste on the screen right here. I definitely recommend you try it out. This is the most updated version, other than changing the Ditto speed and nature, which is not going to make a huge difference to the team. This is the team that I think is probably the best team in Open Team Sheet, if you ask me, other than maybe some Zacian Ogre variants. Again, I strongly recommend that you try it out. And maybe, and also, again, the other takeaway is, like, really think about your Zacian spreads, because I think that you can potentially run some really interesting types of Zacian spreads if you want to. And again, that's just another reason to try out this team. So yeah, that's all I got. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to join the channel membership if you want to support the channel. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you all later.